Wonderful. So again, welcome everyone to today's Choose Grad York session, how to pay for grad school at York University. This session is running as part of our lunchtime workshop series this week, Choose Grad York, offered to folks who have applied to York and either been made an offer or who have still yet to receive a decision. We hope that the lunchtime workshops will help you make a decision about choosing to pursue graduate studies at York. So for what we'll be covering today, we'll briefly go over the three main types of financial support available to graduate students at York. So we'll have our funding team go over funding packages. We'll have our scholarships and awards team address those. And then we'll address other sorts of financial support, which are usually needs-based. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and one of our team members will be happy to answer them. Next up, we have Dimitri, who will be covering our funding presentation portion.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dimitri Katzman. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Funding and Planning. And in the session, I'm going to talk about the standard funding packages for graduate students. And if you have any questions during my part, you can always put them in the chat, and my colleagues Sandra and Stephanie will answer them. So let's begin. Next slide, please. All right. So at York University, there are many graduate students who receive funding packages, and we have a lot of programs that offer them, and the applicants are automatically considered during the application process. A lot of these packages differ from one another and from program to program, and also different for domestic and international students. And if you want to find out specifically how much you will be getting, you can find this information in the offer of admission letter. And this letter will also be available in my file section of York website. Now, these funding packages, they have a lot of various components in them, and now we're going to review all these different types of components. Next slide, please. All right, so we have two types of funding components in a package. One that is granted, and the other one funding that is earned through employment. So first of all, we'll talk about the granted components. We have your graduate fellowship and faculty enhanced funding. Those two components are given automatically to any student that is admitted as a funded student to a graduate program. And then we also have entrance scholarships. So those are usually given to applicants with high grades, and they are given for the first year. That's why they're called entrance scholarships. And also we have healthcare bursaries. So healthcare bursary for YAXA healthcare, which is an extended benefits plan that is given to all full-time graduate students that don't have an employment contract at York. And another one is the UHIP bursary. So UHIP bursary is given to the international funded students to cover the UHIP charge, which is basic health benefits equivalent to OHIP. All right, let's continue to the next slide. And the other type of components in the package could be the earned component. So this is funding where you would earn money by working as a teaching assistant, graduate assistant, or research assistant. And let me explain a little bit the difference between these positions. So teaching assistant and graduate assistant, these are employment positions. They are unionized. They are part of the CUPE collective agreement, which means that they come with a lot of different restrictions, but also with a lot of benefits that come on top of the salary itself. And one of the benefits, for example, is the Sun Life package for health insurance, which is given to all York employees in one form or another, and all the additional provisions that are part of the QP collective agreement. And research assistant position is different from those two. This is not considered an regular employment. It's more of a stipend to participate in a research that is closely related to the subject of your studies. So this income is not taxed as a regular employment income, unlike the other two. Okay, let's continue to the next slide. So now let's review the typical standard packages that you will see in different classifications of graduate studies. The first one is a funding package for master's programs that last for 3 terms. So 1 year master's programs typically receive 10,000 for domestic students and 24,500 for international students. And as you can see here, we only have the fellowship component, and for international students, we have the faculty enhanced funding, the purpose of which is to attract more students to a specific program. Okay, let's continue to the next type of package. Okay, here we have the master's programs that are longer than 1 year. So if it's a master's program for 6 terms, it would be 53, almost 54,000 for domestic students and almost 85,000 for international students. And here you can see that this type of funded package already has an employment component, which means that you will receive either teaching or assistantship position or graduate assistantship position. And also it's important to understand that this is the standard package, but you can also receive some additional components like an entrance scholarship, which will increase the total, at least for the first year. So this is just the minimum packages that are available to most programs. Okay, let's continue to PhD. Next slide. Okay, so for the PhD, this is a little bit different. For PhD, the amount that you see is the annual amount. So every year from 1 to 5, for every year you will receive 27,000 for domestic students and 39,000 for international students. So every year out of 5 years, that's the amount that you will receive. And you probably noticed that the international packages are much higher than the domestic one. And this is for the simple reason that the international tuition is higher. So York helps international students to close that gap. All right, so let's continue to the next slide. Okay, so I covered all the basics of the standard graduate funding here. And before we continue, I would like to reiterate these important points so everyone understands and there's no confusion. So it's very important to understand that the funding packages, they're not application based. So you don't need to apply for them separately. You automatically will be considered for funding if the program offers a funded package, if a program is funded. Also, it's important to understand that this is not a loan. It doesn't work like OSAP. This money is granted to you or you earn it and you can keep the money. Part of this money covers your tuition fee, but whatever is left is for you to spend and you don't need to return it to York. So very important point. Another point, the decision to give you the funded package, it's not based on the financial need of the applicant. We have other instruments to help students with financial need, which will be available after they admitted. But this decision is made without consideration to financial needs specifically. It's very important to understand. And this is not the only form of financial support available to graduate students at York. So the moment you become registered active student in York system, there's going to be a lot of different opportunities, awards, bursaries, scholarships that will be available for you to apply. And if you're eligible, you may receive some extra funding on top of your standard package. So now my colleague Narus will explain about all these other different types of financial support. Please go ahead. Oh, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Dimitri. Hi, everyone. My name is Narus. I am a research officer with the Faculty of Graduate Studies. And now we'll move into a very brief overview of the scholarships and awards that are available to York graduate students. As mentioned earlier, we do have our wonderful colleagues from FGS monitoring the Q&A. So as we do go through these slides, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A so that they can answer them for you there. Next slide. So as applicants to York, you will be very happy to know that there are several avenues of graduate student funding available. And here's an overview of what you can generally expect. York has entrance scholarships, and these are offered to students when they first begin their graduate programs. And we'll go into each of these in turn as well. Beyond entrance scholarships, we also have internal awards. These include bursaries as well as program-specific scholarships that are available to current students once they have enrolled and are registered active in their graduate program. We also have additional funding for students such as external awards, which are administered through the university, and these include major national and provincial scholarships such as the federally funded Tri-Council Awards, as well as the provincially funded Ontario Graduate Scholarships. And we'll delve into these in a little bit more detail in the next couple of slides. But these are the most prestigious and most highly funded and highly regarded external scholarships that are available to registered students at York. And there are also many other external scholarships, but these are what you can expect when you do apply. And the external scholarships that are available, and there are hundreds, can be found on our scholarships and awards page on the Faculty of Graduate Studies website. But on this note, one thing I do want to mention with regards to most of the funding opportunities is that they are intended typically for full-time graduate students. So that's just something to keep in mind as you do explore the funding opportunities, scholarships, and awards available at York, is that most are designated for full-time students, though there are some that are available to those who are registered part-time. Next slide. So we'll start with entrance awards. Again, these are designed to recognize academic excellence right from the start, and there are quite a few that are available at York, and we've listed some of them here. So we won't delve into these ones into too much detail, but some of the entrance awards available to graduate students who are coming to York are the York Graduate Scholarship. So this supports students who are entering both the master's and doctoral programs. Doctoral students can also be considered for the prestigious Elia Scholars Award, and this is one of the highest honors for incoming PhD students. It's valued at $35,000 a year for up to 4 years. For those of you in the liberal arts, there's also the Chancellor Bennett Masters and Doctoral Scholarships, and these aim to attract top talent to those fields in the liberal arts, and it's worth up to $20,000 a year. And another competitive entrance award is the Graduate Fellowship for Academic Distinction, and this is valued at up to $16,000 for master's students and up to $26,000 for doctoral students. Of course, some programs also offer their own program-based entrance scholarships, so it's worth checking to see if your prospective department does provide additional support. But the good news is that applicants to York are automatically considered for these entrance awards. So there is no need for you to submit a separate application for these. You would be automatically considered. Generally speaking, some entrance awards are granted along with your offer of admission, while others may be awarded later on once admission decisions have been finalized. Next slide. Now, with regards to awards that are available to current students, so those of you who are enrolled or who become registered active. We do have internal awards, which are typically donor funded. And at York, there is approximately $15 million available annually, and most awards are valued anywhere between $500 to $5,000. Internal awards are typically awarded based on merit, and some of these awards also do consider financial need as part of that criteria. And each of the internal awards also has their own separate eligibility criteria and requirements, so it's just something to keep in mind if you do end up exploring some of those opportunities. The Faculty of Graduate Studies also offers the Academic Excellence Fund, or the AEF, which provides funds for research and scholarly activities that are carried out by grad students, and it's valued up to $2,000 per academic year. And there are 3 deadlines throughout each academic year as well. So the AEF can essentially help to cover costs related to undertaking your research. So if you are going to be giving a conference presentation or doing field work or any other research related expenses, you can apply for the AEF to help cover those expenses. There are also several other research support funds available as well. So these include things like the Research Cost Fund, and this assists with costs directly connected to your research that's undertaken by full-time grad students. There are certain parameters that apply, but this is valued up to $1,600 per degree. We also have the PhD Completion Fund. So for students in their final term of full-time study, they can apply for these funds that are related to travel and accommodations necessary to undertaking their research or to help cover materials or supplies that's essential for completing their research, for example. And then York also has the Thesis Allowance Fund to help assist with the cost of production of the final form of your thesis and dissertation. And you can apply for all of these once you're a student. And again, of course, there are specific eligibility criteria there, so make sure you're checking out our Scholarships and Awards website to see what those details are. Next slide. Now, the most prestigious externally funded awards are collectively known as the Tri-Council Awards, and these are federally funded scholarships. So the Tri-Council, also referred to as the Tri-Agency, comprises of the CIHR, or the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, NSERC, or the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, and SSHRC, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. And the Tri-Council offers master's level awards for which there's one shared application portal across all 3 agencies. And they also offer doctoral level awards for which all 3 agencies has their own separate application portal. So you would apply depending on your research focus through the specific agency portal. To be eligible for the Tri-Council Awards at the master's level, you must be a domestic student who is studying full-time in a research-based program. And the awards can only be held at an eligible Canadian university. And then at the doctoral level, both domestic and international students in a program with the major research component can apply. For both of the award levels, there are additional eligibility criteria which applicants must meet in order to apply. So just be sure to familiarize yourself with the full criteria to make sure that you are eligible prior to your application. And if you're unsure about which agency you should be applying through, you will want to carefully review the subject matter eligibility details at the link provided, which we can also share with you in the chat. Next slide. So we can start with a really quick breakdown of the Tri-Agency Awards at the master's level. This is referred to as the CGRSM, or the Canada Graduate Research Scholarship Masters. These are valued at $27,000 a year for up to 3 terms. So this CGRSM would cover a 1-year master's program. The deadline to apply for master's students is typically December 1st every year. So for any future master's students here who might be interested, I encourage you to familiarize yourself with the criteria to see if you're eligible to apply for this upcoming competition cycle in December. Applications must be submitted through the Tri-Council's research portal by that December deadline, and then results are announced directly in the research portal the following spring, usually on April 1st. Next slide. Now, when you are applying for the Tri-Council Masters Award, your application will be evaluated on 3 key criteria, which you can see here. So just for reference, the first is academic excellence. That counts for 50% of the evaluation of your application. So this includes things like your academic record, scholarships, and awards that you might have held in the past. And then the next criteria is research potential. That counts for 30% of the evaluation. And here, reviewers are looking at the quality and originality of your research contributions, as well as the significance, feasibility, and merit of your proposed research. And then finally, personal characteristics and interpersonal skills make up the remaining 20% of the evaluation for this award. So here, reviewers would be looking at things such as your work and leadership experiences, as well as any involvement you might have in academic life, volunteer activities, or community outreach. So just some things to keep in mind if you are thinking about applying to these scholarships. You want to make sure that your application touches on all of these criteria. Next slide. Now, as mentioned earlier, the Tri-Council does offer funding at the doctoral level as well. So whether your research falls under health, social sciences, or natural sciences and engineering, you might be eligible to apply for the Tri-Council doctoral scholarships. These are valued at $40,000 a year for 3 years. And York's deadline for students to submit their applications is typically in early October every year. We finalize these deadlines in late spring, early fall, so that information will be available on our website closer to the time. But in terms of the process, once students have submitted their applications, they first go through an internal adjudication process at York. And then the top ranked files are forwarded to the agencies in Ottawa for the final decision, which typically is announced the following spring. And we'll move to the next slide to take a look at the tri-agency doctoral selection criteria, which is what you can see here. So the selection criteria are the same across all three agencies. So whether you are applying to the CIHR, to NSERC, or to SSHRC, they use the same criteria for each. And that is researchability and potential for 50% of the evaluation. And that in terms of researchability and potential, they're looking at the quality of your research proposal, any relevant training and experience that you might have, and so on. And then the remaining 50% is evaluated based on your relevant experience and achievements obtained within and beyond academia. So here they're looking at, the scholarships and awards you might have held in your past, your academic record, the courses you've taken, and so on. So these are the criteria that both the institutional review process and faculty members look at when they're reviewing your application at York for these competitions. It's also what the agencies are using to evaluate and rank candidates at the national level. So I do encourage you to familiarize yourself with the more comprehensive version of the evaluation criteria if you are interested in applying to these scholarships and awards come fall. Next slide. You'll be happy to know there's also provincial level funding available. This is known as the Ontario Graduate Scholarship and the Queen Elizabeth II or QE2 scholarships, and these are open to both master's and PhD students. The OGS and QE2 are merit-based scholarships, so they're jointly funded by the province of Ontario and the university that's offering the award. And so for both awards, the value and the duration are the same. If you are successful, you would be awarded $15,000 for 1 year, and this is non-renewable, meaning that you would have to reapply each year that you're eligible, and you would have to hold the award for at least 2 consecutive terms during your graduate degree, or up to 3 terms total if successful. So for OGS, the difference is that both domestic and international students from any program can apply, but for the QE2, only domestic students in the science, technology, and engineering programs are eligible. Luckily, the application is adjudicated together at the institutional level. So at York, OGS applicants in science, tech, and engineering who are eligible to hold the QE2 are automatically considered for the QE2. So there's not a separate application for either of the awards. There's the one OGS application, and if you are in the science, technology, and engineering, your application would automatically be considered for the QE2. Next slide. So beyond the major Tri-Council awards and the major OGS provincial awards, there are also many, many external scholarships and awards that you can apply to directly as students. These include opportunities like the IODE War Memorial Scholarship, the Fulbright Canada Scholarships, the Frank Knox Fellowships, the AAUW International Fellowships, and several more that support everything from Canadian studies to Northern research to corporate governance and so on. Unlike tri-council funding, these awards aren't administered through the university, so you as a student would apply directly on your own. And if you're successful, our office can work with the funder to make sure that your funding is dispersed properly. What is important to remember is that each of these awards has its own requirements. It has its own separate eligibility rules and criteria. It has its own distinct deadlines, and these vary widely. So part of your preparation as incoming grad students is to research what aligns with your academic goals and with your particular research project and to keep track of those timelines. This slide is simply meant to just show you the range of opportunities that are available if you're proactive and explore what fits your needs the best. Next slide. Now, I do want to share a couple of general tips that hopefully will help you with any major scholarship application. And the first and the most important is to always start early. So these applications always take a lot longer than expected. So we always recommend planning to finish at least 3 days or up to a week before the stated deadline for the specific competition in question. That buffer just gives you enough time to deal with any unexpected delays and make sure that you're able to submit your application on time without issue. The next thing we always recommend is to make sure that you verify all required materials for each award. So again, every scholarship is slightly different, but most major awards will typically ask for a 1 to 2 page research statement or proposal, 2 to 3 reference letters of support. They also ask for your transcripts, typically for all of your post-secondary studies, so any undergraduate or graduate studies that you would have attended or completed, and then a CV or some type of record of your academic contributions. As incoming students, you do actually have the advantage of time in this case, so you can begin thinking ahead now about how you will plan your writing, who you might ask for reference letters, and how you'll organize your materials for the fall, which is typically when a lot of these deadlines are. One thing to keep in mind too is that application formats also vary widely. So for example, some scholarships will require you to upload the letters of reference from your from your referees for support, while others will actually send you their referee directly or the reference letters directly for you to upload, as I said. In other instances, such as in the Tri-Council, you will have to insert or enter your referees' names and contact information, and then they would receive a link directly to the portal to upload their own letters of reference. So you want to make sure that you're paying close attention to the specific instructions for each award because they all vary quite significantly. But if you do start early and keep track of all the requirements, you should be in a strong position to be able to handle any last minute hiccups and to submit a complete and competitive application. And of course, our office is always here to support if you have any questions about any of the competitions or scholarships that you come across. And with that, I'll hand it over to my colleagues to talk about other forms of financial support. So thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, Niruz. I just wanted to note that we are seeing a lot of questions in the Q&A about is this session being recorded and when will it be shared? Yes, it is being recorded, and we will send every registrant for the event an email next week with a link to our YouTube channel where all of these recordings will live. So, turning to other forms of financial support. First up are bursaries. So graduate students can apply for Faculty of Graduate Studies bursaries once you start your program in September. The deadline for these bursaries is going to be the end of January. And this is for the central bursary program. Your academic program may have their own bursary program. If they do, the deadline is internal to them, so you would want to check directly with the program. Most FGS bursaries are only available to full-time students. You would need to demonstrate financial need, and you do need to complete that needs assessment every term. So disbursement happens in the winter, and usually it's no more than $1,000 a year, but it could range basically up to $1,000, depends on the year and some other factors. Then next up, some folks may be familiar with this term, OSAP, the Ontario Student Assistance Plan. So that's basically the provincial loan system for the province of Ontario. You can potentially apply for OSAP if you are a domestic student So Canadian citizen or permanent resident who is a resident of Ontario. If you are a resident of another province, you would need to apply directly through their own provincial or territorial loan program. So, um, you are a resident of a province. It's basically where you live outside of attending school. School attendance doesn't go towards residency. OSAP is made up of grants and loans that are distributed by Government of Ontario agency. Is based on your personal financial situation. So your income, assets, dependents, whether you are a dependent of someone else, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, you input your information into the OSAP application, and then they determine how much aid is given to you in the form of grants and or loans. So many graduate students are utilizing OSAP in addition to a funding package, in addition to scholarships, personal funding and finances, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, OSAP is only available for domestic students. So again, that is Canadian citizens and permanent residents. Lastly, and Dimitri had briefly touched on this earlier in the presentation, research assistantships are available as well. It's stipend for your research, it's a stipend for assignments that are related to your research. So that's kind of the end of the formal presentation. We'll just do a couple more slides here. We have our Faculty of Graduate Studies social media channels, so Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Highly recommend following, liking, subscribing. We share event details, student profiles, alumni profiles, research opportunities, grant opportunities, so on and so on. And then lastly, we'll leave this up. It is a contact page for the various departments or various units within our department that can assist students in terms of admissions, funding, or scholarships. So I'll put those in the chat as well. And then you can reach out to the appropriate team, and we're happy to either help or to give a referral to someone who can. I also want to give a short plug as well to events that are happening on Thursday and Friday as part of the Choose Grad York series. Tomorrow we have a student panel happening at noon, and where you can hear from current students all about their experiences as a graduate student. And then lastly, we have our session on Friday, particularly for international students coming to Canada, how the school system works, what things are different, things to look out for, and various other observations about how Canada may be different from what you're used to or what you were expecting. So with that being said, we do have quite a few questions in the Q&A, so we will turn to those.